Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist, Hank Goldberg here. Monday morning, we had a big weekend of sports, Hank, and a lot of controversy. The Kentucky Derby, of course, is probably at the top of the list that we should talk about. What are your feelings?
I was on the air at CBS after the race, and I was on through the discussions, and I was probably the first to report that the horse should come down. NBC was waffling, from what I understand. First, they said that they didn't think there would be a disqualification, and then they changed their minds later and said that it was the right decision. People who are veteran horse racing analysts are in agreement that the horse definitely interfered with the other two horses. When the number one horse came over,
War of Will.
When War of Will came over on hold on a second. When Maximum Security came over on War of Will was making a move where he was about to pull alongside them because they were about to hit the stretch. Definitely affected the outcome of the race. The closers in the race, Tacitus and Code of Honor, were closing. They could have won the race if there was any kind of stretch duel between the other two.
You know, Hank.
So it affected the race from that standpoint. The other thing was this horse, Maximum Security, came over on that horse and almost caused a terrible accident. They could have clipped heels. There could have been a real problem. If this was any other race, it would have taken them 3 minutes to disqualify this horse. Rule's the rule. You know, if you bother another horse and it affects the outcome of the race, horse comes down. It's that simple. There is no argument about it. The only people who are upset are Gary West and his group who wanted an investigation. The stewards were in agreement. The three of them agreed. There was there was a long discussion only because it was the Kentucky Derby, and the horse had never been disqualified in the history of the Derby for interfering in a race.
Well, Hank,
it should be no discussion about it.
I 1,000% agree with you. I had a stable of horses a long time ago, and I know the rules. And my concern was exactly part of what you said. Everything you said was right. But if War of Will was making a move, I don't think he was, you could discount him. Nobody talks about that. And if he'd have gone down...
Well, yeah, I don't think you can discount him. He was making a move, and he would have been part of the pace coming into the stretch. If he comes alongside Maximum Security won't speed anymore. That affects the race.
I totally agree. And what happened, I mean, you mentioned it, the disaster would have been for that day, for the horses, for the jockeys. If that horse would have gone down, the 5 or 6 more horses could have gone down, even more than that. And jockeys and horses could have ended up dead. I don't understand the controversy at all. The horse broke the rules. He could have caused an absolute disaster. And for them to be up in arms and appealing and all this, it's bullshit.
Well, everybody who knows racing, Jerry Bailey came on this morning and said the same thing.
I agree.
People who have been involved in the sport for a long time, all are in agreement on this. Gary West is now not going to, he told Jay Priven he's not going to go on to the Preakness. And now he's kind of waffling a little bit because he's going to appeal. He's not going to win his appeal. No chance of that happening.
No, I agree, and I'm kind of ashamed of him for even trying, because it's pretty obvious what happened and what should have happened. And like you said, that horse would have been brought down in a couple of minutes if it would have been any other race except the Derby. So It was an exciting race. It's unfortunate.
Meanwhile, the scene at the track was unbelievable. You had people standing in line waiting to collect, who, when the decision came down, had to get out of the line. People who were in pools had to return their money. I mean, there were a lot of stories coming on, around this, because you had a 65-1 shot who won the race. I was second, third, and fourth in the race on our service. And on the television show on CBS on Tuesday, people asked me on the show, who would be your real bomber? And I gave out this horse. And I said, I like horses out of the number 20 post. I think I said this on our podcast, that being in the 20 hole is not a disadvantage, because you get a clean trip. There are no horses in your way. And if you have any ability, you can become a part of the pace factor. I used the horse underneath, but I didn't have him on top. If I had put him on top or boxed him, used him in a box, I'd be $54,000 richer today.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have to do this podcast anymore.
Well, we would miss you, but I'd be glad that you were richer. Hey, listen, the switching sports. I just want to talk for a moment about the Preakness. Okay.
Tacitus is probably not going to run in the Preakness. War may go. Bodie Express. Another Twist of Fate is going. There's a horse called Always Smiling who's undefeated in Maryland. Swaino, Signal Man, a horse that won the Pate Mile, Mo Money. Not so many horses are coming from the Derby to run at the Preakness. And now there are 6,700 seats that are unsafe for people to sit in. That's how run down Pimlico is. And the Stronach people, who are the worst thing that ever happened to horse racing, are now considering moving the Preakness to Laurel. It's a little late for that.
Wow. What? It's just an old track, and they haven't repaired it? Is that what happened?
Oh, Pimlico has been in terrible shape for years. I mean, the elevator that goes up to the press box keeps breaking down. I remember one year I was there, people had to walk up all those flights of stairs to get to the press box. It's a hazard.
Wow, that's too bad. Well, horse racing has had their problems for a lot of years, and let's hope they fix it. Fix not only the track, but the concept of the racing and the taxes and all the things that go with it that have hurt the sport. And you say the Stronach family is the worst thing that happened to the industry. Why do you say that?
Well, they own Santa Anita. Families are suing each other, the mother and the father. He's killing Florida racing. He's the worst owner in the history of Gulfstream. He's ruined Gulfstream. He's ruined Maryland racing. Everything he touches turns to junk. He's just a bad owner. And he owns most of the tracks.
Wow.
I could give you, we would need a lot of time to tell you everything that's wrong with Stronach and his ownership.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a separate podcast someday and discuss it. Switching sports, going to the NBA. I feel very strongly the 76ers have a very solid roster. But the absence or the inconsistencies of Joel Embiid, whether he's ill, he's got knees, he's got the flu, etc., I wasn't not aware, and I got caught with a bad decision yesterday. I thought Philadelphia would play well. Embiid was not really that relevant in the game. Certainly not the way he was in the previous game. He looks like he has the typical injury problems of a big guy with leg problems, ankle problems, a little bit like Bill Walton was back in the day. But then on the other side, I don't think I've ever seen anybody play better than Kawhi Leonard. He has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I had that side yesterday, and Leonard was driving me a little crazy because he had several turnovers, although he made some big baskets in the game and had a lot of key rebounds. But they kept giving him the ball to bring it up the court, and he kept turning the ball over, and he was driving me crazy. But yeah, he's a great player, and he's been a great addition to that club. And I had Toronto yesterday. I had the two winners yesterday, so it was a good day for me.
Absolutely.
And today, I think Boston comes back strong today. But anyway, Leonard is having a great series, and Philadelphia is, they've got a lot of talent on that team, Simmons and they've got a good outside shooter. But Embiid he had a very bad game yesterday.
Yeah,
he wasn't getting to the basket.
He didn't look like he was well. It just didn't. He didn't have the energy, anywhere near the energy he had in the previous game. But that's if he's going to be that inconsistent, it's going to be. Well, you were right on the game. I was wrong. You had the right side. I was wrong. But going forward, then of course we have the Seth Curry issue with his hand, and he had a bad game. The Warriors haven't been as consistent this year as they have in the past. Maybe they're not as hungry. Durant, of course, is amazing and playing well. But that's one of those zigzag games where you would expect the Warriors to bounce back with a big effort, but I don't know. How do you feel about that series?
I think they're going to beat them, and I don't think it's going to be that close today. I'll tell you, Harden to me, is a disaster for that team. He's a selfish player who, when he brings the ball up, and I think that one of the announcers made a great point, he makes it so easy for the defense because when he brings the ball up, everybody just stands around on his team and watches him to see what he's going to do. And he never dishes once in a while he'll go to the basket and dish the ball off, but he just dribbles the ball around and stands there, and everything stops. And it makes it easy to defend. And that's what's wrong with that team. And they got a break. They were lucky to win the last game. Golden State could have won that game very easily. And I think that Harden, he takes over games, and he wants to shoot every time he brings the ball up, and he's always going to shoot the ball himself. And I think he's selfish. And I'll tell you something, he's not right. He has not played great.
No, he hasn't. And it's quite a, all year long. I mean, scoring all the points and doing everything for the team. That's the way they played the whole year. And previous years, it really hasn't changed. The Warriors are not as sharp as they have been in the past, but Harden and company, they play the same way as they did in the past, and I don't think that's championship game. Granted, he's a talented guy, but like you said, it's selfish basketball. It's not team basketball.
Yeah. I don't think they have what it takes to beat this team. I think this series is going to be over in 5 games.
All right. Anything else you want to add from anything else out there?
By the way, something that Golden State has so many guys who can play and who are playing well right now. Curry, I don't know if his fingers bothering him or what, but it doesn't bother me. The way he's playing right now. He can still go to the basket when he wants to, and but they've got so much other talent on that team. And Durant is out of he's incredible. He's far and away the best player on the court.
No question. Were you surprised when it came out that LeBron was shocked when Magic left the team? Were you surprised about that, or do you believe, or what do you think?
I don't care. That story doesn't matter to me. You know, I mean, it comes out now that Magic left the team because he intercepted a correspondence, you know, between the owner and the general manager, saying that they weren't happy with Magic's focus on the job, and so he said, "The heck with this, I'm out." You know, LeBron isn't running that organization. Not like it was in other places he's been.
Right. Well, it's going to be interesting, but I'm enjoying the playoffs. It's we got some great basketball. The Denver and Portland series is really exciting, and watching what Kyrie Leonard, excuse me, Irving. Well, I don't know. They're going to have I think they have a big game tonight, but then watching Leonard out of Toronto, and it's really some great basketball players, and it's really a great thing. And then of course you got the Greek. He's awesome. It's exciting. Good time.
The officiating has become an issue in every big sport and every big event. Horse racing being the latest, but the officiating is a major situation right now in the NBA. There are a couple of things that they're talking about with the NBA right now. One of them is shortening the season.
God, I hope so.
And the other is, you know, how to maintain integrity among the officiating in the sport. And this is something that the commissioner is looking into.
And, you know, and with the spread of legalized sports betting in the United States, it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue, because the people that are betting money, like you or I, or anybody, a lot of the other people we know out there, they want integrity. They want to know that they're getting a fair shot and the games are not being manipulated. I thought horse racing really helped the integrity issue by taking that horse down. If they didn't take that horse down, that would have been terrible. But I'm glad they did that.
You know, it took a lot of courage for those stewards to do that.
Yes.
And New Jersey, that outfit New Jersey that keeps giving refunds on $10 bets or whatever, you know, for publicity's sake, is giving refunds. And of course, you can't do that. And Nevada's not going to do that at all. They can't. You'd have to go through computers and whatnot, and you know, people have thrown their tickets away, and those publicity seekers who want to do that are bad for the business. You know, you go by the rules, and you know, people who are horse players have to understand that, you know, you're never happy when you get taken down in a race.
Oh, hell no.
You know, I've been there and, many times. I didn't have that horse. I will confess that I underestimated maximum security, and I left him out of all my gimmicks. He's a better horse than I thought he was. And by the way, can't blame Saez, the jockey. It's not like he lost control of the horse. The horse, you know, the horse just drifted out, and the jockey just, you know, wasn't strong enough to get him straightened out. It happens in a race. It's funny that I was on the air during the time that they were looking at the over and over again before they made the decision. I said the same thing Bill Mott said. I said that if this was the third race at a Minnesota racetrack instead of the Kentucky Derby, that horse would have come down within 5 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Mott said the same thing.
Without a doubt. And I know you have a good relationship with Mott, so that was a great win for him. I mean, nobody wants to win that way, but you know, his horse ran a good race. I mean, 65-1, he's certainly he was underestimated by everybody. So, I mean, that,
Well, he had a clean trip, too.
he sure did.
That's a big part of it. Tacitus, for example, Tacitus, if you look at the comment on his race, it says that he steadied while unsettled behind horses the first time through the stretch, found a better rhythm through the middle stages, came 5 wide on the far turn, exchanged brushes with Game Winner late, and finished well with good courage. I mean, he got knocked around. That track condition had a big impact on a race. Code of Honor had a decent race. He managed to get through and take a short lead after a mile, but he actually flattened out in the upper stretch. But he had a clean race, relatively speaking. And you know, Country House, he didn't have any trouble, and that was a big Improbable. For example, he went along in striking range and he got blocked several times and couldn't make his move to get in position. And he didn't have much left in the stretch run. You know, Game Winner had his usual wide trip, but he finally closed well. So it was a rough race because of the sloppy conditions. By the way, NBC. When the horses came out on the track, they went to a commercial that went forever, a commercial break. And then they ran Layla Ali's commentary coming out of the commercial. They never showed the horses warming up on the track. Here you had an enormous condition that could affect the race, and they never discussed it once the horses were on the racetrack. That was one of the most disgraceful telecasts I've ever seen, because I had to watch the race. I was on before and after the race. So I went back to watch the NBC treatment of it, thinking that they would comment on about the horses on the racetrack and how they were adapting to the conditions. Never showed the warm-up of the race. How do you place a 5-minute commercial break and a meaningless commentary about how special the Kentucky Derby is without showing the horses on the racetrack warming up?
That's obviously somebody that doesn't understand what is important to a race and to race fans.
This is NBC. They've got the contract. They're showing all the races for years. They've got the whole Triple Crown contract, and they show the Travers. They've got all the big races.
Usually it's one person that makes the decision to do that, and obviously they in my opinion, I know what you're talking about. I watched it as well. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Well, the commercial placements is a management thing, not the producer of the show. He doesn't control that.
No, okay. All right, Hank, we're going to have a good week this week, starting with basketball and baseball tonight. We'll talk again on Wednesday. Thanks for your time today and all the commentary and your opinions. Thank you. Okay, Jim. The Preakness is probably going to have a lot of new faces. I don't see too many of the Derby horses moving on because, you know, it's unlikely there's going to be a Triple Crown. And I know Tacitus is going to pass on the Preakness and go on to the Belmont. Belmont will be a great race. Yeah, it will. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Hank. Okay, Jim. Have a good day. You too.